Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition here of the Matt of Steel podcast. Where, of course, yours truly, Charles Prodigy Richey, and the Steelers finish out the 2022 campaign with a 9-8 record. It is Mike Tomlin's still setting a record beginning his career as head coach with 16 consecutive seasons to begin a career. Remember, last year he set the record by passing late Mike Schartenheimer, who did it with 14 consecutive seasons where he began his career with the Browns and going over to the Chiefs, the Chargers, in his entire NFL career. So Mike Tomlin is still going strong at 16 consecutive seasons with a non-losing season. They miss out on the playoffs this year, thus making their own bed. Key brutal month was the month of October, of course, beginning with the loss to the Jets and, of course, the Dolphins a few weeks later. Within that month. Plus, he also lost a home opener, too, which is another bad start to the New England Patriots. The Steelers going into Sunday's matchup, they needed to beat the Browns and have both the Patriots and the Dolphins lose. Dolphins ended up hanging on, winning that game at the end of regulation. All field goals in that game, 9-6. And, of course, Steelers on the brink of elimination, thus ending a back-to-back playoff berth appearance. And back on November 15th, if you guys remember a couple months ago, writer for CBS Sports, Josina Anderson, tweeted that morning on the 15th of November that there's talk behind the scenes as to whether any one of the three of the NFL's biggest tenured head coaches will step out this season or next, as these lists get compiled in preparation for vacancies. We'll see. Mike Tomlin was talked about, being about feeling motivation by the competition. Brooke Pryor asked if he still feels the same fire going into the offseason. According to Mike Tomlin, more so, increasingly so. And also, too, after making those comments yesterday, as reported by Brooke Pryor of ESPN, the Browns requested permission to interview Steelers linebacker coach Brian Flores for their defensive coordinator job per source. Now, remember, the run game was definitely a big issue going into this season. Last year, we saw it fall off tracks last year as it hit an all-time low. It went from 32nd in the league last year, shortly after Tyson Alualu was lost for the year with a knee injury, I believe it was. Well, this year, they were still starting off dead last for at least almost the first month of September. But as things got along, they started moving up, winning 5-10 spots. They finished out the season ninth on the ground for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was a phenomenal job. Which definitely needed some time and patience to gel. But the Steelers find themselves this year on the run defense, surrendering over 1,838 yards off of 442 attempts. 4.2 yards per attempt, 7 touchdowns. Like I said, that finished ninth in the league. So a well job done there by Brian Flores, who controversially got fired by the Miami Dolphins a year ago. Shortly after we heard the report by the Miami Dolphins, basically that they were trying, Stephen Ross, he was accused of some of the Brian Flores and asked him to lose games to get higher draft picks. Eventually, Brian Flores' record as Miami Dolphins head coach. Basically, he only had, in his time there, only one losing season, which was in his first year. He went 5-11. And, of course, the next few years, they barely missed the playoffs, more so in 2020. So their first year of COVID, where they went 10-6, which is career high in wins. And then his last season, 2021, they finished out 9-8. Now, of course, when you look at Brian Flores' rankings right there, he did not do enough to grow Tua Tagovailoa when they first got him in 2020 out of the University of Alabama. But defensively, he wasn't all that bad. When you look at it, he got his total defense for points. He got as high as sixth best in the league, surrendering the least amount of points. And we'll see. But I mean, other than that, the Miami Dolphins right there. I mean, definitely a controversial franchise to say the least, as we looked at. But for right now, I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, with Brian Flores, he was able to get some guys on his team to try and slowly turn this thing around. I mean, you look at like some of the guys we mentioned about, including like a guy like Devin Bush, who has fifth-year option declined. Bush earned up to over $18.8 million guaranteed in his rookie deal. Devin Bush, who produced 81 tackles this season, 11 more than what he did a season ago. His snaps went down since the loss to the Ravens at Acrisure Stadium this year. That was a home game. As last start was versus the Panthers, where he had 25 snaps. He never came anywhere close to the career high in tackles we made combined in his rookie season back in 2019, where he had 109. Just going to show you an effect what Brian Flores had in his team. That was one of the guys right there, I would say clearly benefited. And if he does move on and gets another opportunity elsewhere, like the Cleveland Browns, I mean, I would hate to see him go, but at the same time, too, I'm still kind of like scratching my head. Why not a head coaching role? I mean, Kevin Stefanski, he's still like not necessarily proven to be the guy for Cleveland. I mean, right now, if you think about it, I mean, Stefanski has only had one winning season and one playoff appearance with a playoff win, which ironically, who they eliminated the Steelers in back-to-back weeks in the final week of the regular season, week 17 in 2020. Then, of course, in the playoffs, in the wild card round, where the Steelers got eliminated ugly in that one with so many turnovers, despite the effort by Ben Roethlisberger, and which game in this one right there. I mean, it was just sadly remembered where they only had a -5 turnover ratio for them. Those turnovers coming off the heels of Ben Roethlisberger, they would give up 48 points, and which was part of their 4 game losing streak. That was a 3 game losing streak at that moment in time. But anyway, I thought Brian Flores right now, he was definitely one of the noticeable coaches right here who definitely stood out. It took a while to gel. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, considering when you started off the year, and I would give like the run defense right now. I mean, when you look at it, I would give it like a B plus to be honest with you. The way it's shook out. I mean, it definitely was a lot of patience and waiting to say the least. But I mean, this was definitely pretty more than what they could expect to get improved. I really liked what they did, what they had to address. I mean, it was not pretty at times watching this season. I mean, when you look at the yards that really killed them throughout the season, it was definitely had to be like top three. Beginning with the Baltimore Ravens game earlier in the month of December. That game took place on December 11th, where they allowed 215 yards on the ground. And then the second worst was earlier in the season. It was the third game of the season where they had to go on the road in Cleveland to take on the Browns. That was Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, 171 rushing yards. I'd be interested to see. I mean, if he does turn out an offer, will he come back for another season? I'll be honest with you. I mean, Brian Flores right now. I mean, when you look at the Steelers right now, he was definitely a blessing in disguise. Kind of like how, like once upon a time, for the offensive line when they had Mike Munchak, who came in with the Pittsburgh Steelers when he came in beginning from 2014 for 2018. He helped restore an attitude to the offensive line, kind of like how Brian Flores did with the run stop. You definitely hate to see a guy like that move on, but at the same time, too, he needs to get an opportunity to get back to being a better head coach. And speaking of coaches right now, more so on the assistant side, staying with the Steelers. Once again, before we get into that, you guys can follow me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at MountSteelCGR and on Instagram at MountSteelNation as we get ready to prep for the playoffs coming up here in due time. Here's Matt Canada. The verdict still seems to be out right now. If he's going to be on the staff going forward as the offensive coordinator, nothing seemed to be certain right there. I mean, for this team. It's still the door is not slammed shut for this guy to be dismissed. I mean, definitely right now, according to Mike Tomlin, when asked about Matt Canada, he said, "I thought he got better." According to Tomlin, at his end of year news conference on Monday, just like our team got better, I'm not going to speculate about him or anyone as I stand here today. I'm just beginning the process of transitioning in terms of wrapping the bow around it and looking seeing what 2023 looks like. It's not there. We got some work to do, but largely I thought he got better in the ways that we got better. It was encouraging. Now, Kenny Pickett, who's definitely a guy who seemed to get better as this season continued to go on, who basically we'll see if they found their franchise quarterback who actually finished out the season in 13 games, threw for 2,404 yards, 7 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, yards per attempt, about a little over 6 yards, but he still finished out the season with a 77 QB rating and a 51 QBR. Hopefully, clear his work to do right there. But at the same time, to his credit, he had three fourth quarter comebacks and four game winning drives this year. As we look at it, I mean, and you saw like what he was able to do, especially on Sunday Night Football when he helped bring the Steelers back from a 10-point deficit right now. His three fourth quarter comebacks ranked 14th in the league, and then his game-winning drives ranked 10th in the league with four. Tomlin did decline to say how much input Pickett would have in the team's decision to retain Canada, but Pickett said he was off on the same page with his coordinator. We're just getting to know each other, end quote, according to Pickett, which he said on Sunday. I get to know how he calls games. He gets to know why I like constant communication. The more I was playing, the more input I was able to have and what I like. We're always on the same page with Coach Sully, Mike Sullivan as well. That seems to be the drilling question right there, too. I mean, the last 5 years in particular, I mean, Tomlin in his coaching career, when dealing with the offense, his total offense has averaged out to 15th in the league, 15th in points, 20th when it comes to rushing yards, 18th in touchdowns. But then, like passing yards, of course, a lot of it had to do with Ben Roethlisberger, 12th in the league and 12th in passing touchdowns, 17th in the red zone. Just to give you an example, like how noticeable different that was. I mean, the last 5 years, they're average 21st in the league, with their lowest being back in 2019, which was the second to last year of Randy Fichtner before he exited after the 2020 season, before he was like, oh, excuse me. So 21st in yards and 18th in points. And of course, I mean, this year, I mean, in the red zone, 23rd, I mean, he did not do many favors to like show encouragement to be brought back. I mean, the only good that they were good in the red zone under Matt Canada was the first year of COVID, and where they were 11th in red zone touchdowns. And Canada, he's definitely right now. I'm not sure if everybody wants open arms having him back, but it does not seem too. It won't sound too surprising if he was able to come back with the team. I think you got to remember, too, this is a project right now, trying to develop Kenny Pickett. I'm almost starting to wonder in the mindset, if you do, like, retain a guy like Matt Canada, is it more so they just don't want to mess with the chemistry they started to have towards the end of the season? Because you bring in a whole new offensive coordinator. I mean, does that mess with the growth and development of a guy like Kenny Pickett? And we're looking at, too, right now, going into it, I mean, for out. But I mean, like according to Chris Smaller, 93.7 The Fan, one of the potential candidates that could come in, he's pointing to Mark Whipple. First year, 12 games, 62% completions, 3,098 yards with 13 touchdowns, 9 receptions. Second year, 9 games, 61% completion with 2,408 yards, 13 touchdowns, 9 receptions. 9 receptions. The final season, explosion of 67% completions, 4,319 yards and 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Now, does that mean he needs a new coordinator to take the next step? Is there more for Canada to show him? Chris Muller does go on to say if the Steelers do decide to make a move, there are some candidates. We'll go on the premise that they won't go into college ranks again. Although a guy like Alabama's Bill O'Brien has called plays in the NFL and been a head coach. Another guy that was also mentioned on this list was Frank Wright, fired mid-season by the Colts after going 40-33. He was the offensive coordinator for the Super Bowl champion Eagles in 2017, leading the third highest scoring offense in the NFL. And back-to-back years in 2020 for 2021, the Colts were the ninth highest scoring team with Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz as the primary quarterbacks in 2022. They were 30th with Matt Ryan as the opening starter. Nathaniel Hackett, he's another one right here, who got fired mid-season in Denver with the Broncos with Russell Wilson's first year. 32nd in points, but I'm not sure if that would be one. Cliff Kingsbury, we already know about his track record, how he tried to work with Kyler Murray and how he did a phenomenal job involving James Conner being a touchdown scoring machine. Matt Nagy, not really. I think one guy, if you're going to look at, maybe Byron Leftwich right there. After his disastrous offense year with as OC in Arizona in 2018, he was hired by the Bucs, but it wasn't until this year was third with Jameis Winston as quarterback, third and second in points scored from 2019 through 2021, 25th this season. So again, three. That includes one of those seasons before Tom Brady arrived. He's worked with Tom Brady in the Bucs and played under Tomlin, who knows what the offseason could hold for him. I would definitely like a guy like Byron Leftwich if they were to look somewhere else. Maybe Frank Reich, but Frank Reich I think is more defensive. If anything, when I hear that name, it screams out. Feel free to leave a comment on my YouTube channel here, Matt Steel Pockets. You can also check it out on my Facebook page, which I'll share shortly after this is over with. But right now, once again, foul verdict was Matt Canada stay or does he go? And to be honest with you, I would have to say they'll stay on for right now. There's going to be a lot more weighing on this. Have to feel how everyone's coming along here. But other than that, we'll see what happens. Transitioning right now, Mika Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic. He gets recognized and voted by the team as a Steelers team MVP this year for the black and gold, which was nice to see, well deserved. He right now he becomes the first safety since Troy Polamalu won the honor back in 2010, which is very rare. You would see a safety on this list. The only safeties that were to win the team MVP award for the Pittsburgh Steelers was Glenn Edwards back in 1974. You had Donnie Shell back in 1980. They did miss the playoffs. And then also, too, yeah, so basically it was Glenn Edwards, Donnie Shell, and Troy Polamalu. Three safeties prior to Mika Fitzpatrick getting the honor right now. As a matter of fact, too, he becomes the second free safety on the Steelers to earn team MVP award. Mika Fitzpatrick, he earned his career high with 6 interceptions this season. He had the only 6 that was in the beginning of the year. I believe it was on the first drive of the Bengals offensive series in Cincinnati to kick off the season. And then he is the sole member of the Black Gold to be nominated as an All-Pro as voted on by the NFL Players Union, which began this year. NFL's Players Union back on January 11th had their right to go ahead and start voting for the guys who deserve to be nominated as an All-Pro. So we heard about that today right there. And right now. But yeah, congratulations to Mika. He definitely had a great year contributing. And you look at like what he's meant for this team. I mean, I just feel right now, Mika Fitzpatrick, talking about the guy being one of the top paid safeties here as the Steelers right now. I mean, look at like what he's been able to make. He carried in with a cap number his fully guaranteed contract. His cap number for this year was over $8.1 million, but that's going to start going up in the next 4 years now, where he'll be having about 18 back-to-back seasons, 19 in 2025, and his final season over $21.1 million in 2026. I mean, Mika Fitzpatrick, who just did a phenomenal job, and we'll see right now. Remember, this is the official All Pro honor that's voted on by the Associated Press, but the NFL Players Union is doing their own representations of voting for that. He is right now, prior to this, a five-time Pro Bowler. Oh, excuse me, a three-time Pro Bowler, two-time All Pro. If he does get successfully voted on for this, it'll be his third All Pro, so he'll be a three-time Pro Bowler, three-time All Pro. Listen, he was definitely, I think, very valuable for the Steelers this season and for the Pittsburgh Steelers doing what he did. And when you look at like his game and stuff, like how much like impact like he made. I mean, think about it. I mean, the interceptions that he had. I mean, whenever he would make an interception, they were 4-2 whenever he had an interception this season. 4-2 for the season. And not only that, too. I mean, Mika Fitzpatrick for his contributions, too. He also had 96 total tackles and matched his career high of 11 pass deflections. His 96 tackles right now on the team itself, when you look at it on the defense, as far as like combined tackles, that ranks second on the team right there, only behind Miles Jack, who finished out the season with 104. I mean, that's pretty good right there. A guy who's being paid top dollar right now going forward is one of the best free safeties. I thought Mika Fitzpatrick did more than a phenomenal job this year. Now, granted, I mean, the Steelers did miss the playoffs, but I mean, at the same time, too, I mean, listen, this guy still continues to be good as advertised. I mean, Mika Fitzpatrick, who will be going right now, I mean, basically into his fifth season already. Can you believe that? Who will be with this team right now? He'll be turning 27 in November at the end of this year. So congratulations, Mika, on team MVP honors right there. And also, too, I mean, speaking of the offseason, too, let's go ahead and keep you guys posted right now. Going to free agency, the Steelers this year will have 25 as unrestricted free agents, seven of them being starters. And here's a breakdown right now. They're going to be having four on defense, which includes defensive end Larry Ogunjobi, and two first-round picks back in 2018 and 2019. Left inside linebacker, who's 10th overall, Devin Bush, and then 28th overall pick back in the 2018 draft, Terrell Edmonds. Then the only other player on defense, which would be also an unrestricted free agent, is Cam Sutton. Remember, he was a third-round pick. I believe he was 94th overall and taken by the draft back in 2017. Let's see. Yeah, 94th overall back in 2017 of Tennessee. Let's go ahead and take a look on the offensive side of the ball right now. And don't forget too, both Devin Bush and Terrell Evans, they both had their fifth-year options to sign right there. I mentioned earlier at the top of this podcast how Devin Bush hasn't come anywhere close to his career high tackles he had in his rookie season, 109. This could be a big question mark if they give him a one-year deal. See what they do, or if they tag him right now. Also on the offense, you only got two in particular plus one special teams. You got fullback Derek Watt and wide receiver Steve Sims. Special teams, they got Christian Coots. And we'll see. I mean, I think those are going to be the only noticeable concerns like on this list. I'll say more in particular. I mean, one guy, if I want to spare for another season, I'd probably go a little bit more so Terrell Edmonds than Devin Bush for right now. Devin Bush has shown flashes But at the same time, too, I'm really starting to like Terrell Mills. I really thought he's starting to come into his own. I'm not sure if they can find like another like strong safety. I mean, later in free agency. I mean, the Steelers right now, when you look at like the cap space they have currently available to them right now, I mean, going into the season, they have right now over $17.3 million right now. I mean, which could go up if they make a few adjustments with some contracts, restructure some deals right now under Omar Khan and Andy Weidel, who are both the GM tandem for the Steelers going forward. I would definitely be intrigued by that. I mean, how they manage that, we'll see. As far as right now, some like safeties. I mean, when you look at it too, I mean, who could be out there that they could take a look at? I mean, they already got like their guy Mika's locked up, but I'm not sure who to definitely look at. But we'll come revisit that point for another time. Also, too, speaking of vacancies, how about coaching vacancies? Coach of the year right now. As of Tuesday, according to let's see, uh, the Athletic, back yesterday, it was announced that there's right now currently there's 5 coaching positions available right now. Here's a time frame in the order that happened. Remember back on October 10th, the Carolina Panthers they fired Matt Rule on October 10th. Then the Colts fired Frank Reich, who they replaced with Jeff Saturday back on November 7th. Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett on January 26th, and of course, fired Lovie Smith after the final game of the regular season, which helped the Chicago Bears secure the number one overall pick. He's had control of the number one overall pick, but by winning it, they clearly hurt their chances of getting that. And of course, last but not least, Carls, they fired Cliff Kingsbury back on Monday, January 9th. And if you look at, excuse me, I meant Tuesday for January 11th, so sorry about that. But Kingsbury, I think that one was a relationship has already started with Kyler Murray when they did his new contract and right there, pulling in the amount of study right there and how he took it real personal, but trying to extend extensive hours of film right there to like earn like his guarantees. I mean, the clauses right there. I mean, Matt LaFleur and Nathaniel Hackett spoke recently about, but not specifically about the possibility of Hackett returning to Green Bay. Hackett, he was fired by the Broncos after just 15 games as a head coach. He served as LaFleur's offensive coordinator from 2019 through 2021. So the nature of the conversation was more checking in on a friend, though talks about potential package reunion may happen at a later date. LaFleur also added that I know he needs some family time as well. LaFleur said Monday in his season wrap-up conference. Asked Chris Ballard how it got so bad so quickly. He started with 3 reasons: instability at quarterback, offensive line regression. They kept being themselves. Uh, More from Chris Ballard or the coach. Look, I failed. I'm not going to sit up here and make excuses. I fail a lot of people. I never take lightly what's at stake here. Despite Jeff Saturday's 1-7 record, despite his team's minus 87 point differential during his tenure, despite historic collapses and brutal last second losses, and the fact that his team regressed competitively almost every conceivable way, Jeff Saturday still believes he deserves a shot at fixing all that's wrong with this franchise. Saturday did say, I have a very clear vision of how I can turn this football team around, and asked about his candidacy for the Colts head coach position, one he intends to interview for in the coming weeks. Now, another one, too, that could be well keeping an eye on, too. Mike McCarthy. Will he remain with the Cowboys should the Cowboys lose to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Tom Brady on Monday night? This will be the final game of the playoff wildcard weekend right there. Jerry Jones is reassured on 105.3, the fan in Dallas. He said that nothing that happens in Monday night's wildcard game against the Buccaneers will impact his head coach, Mike McCarthy's content. I got to tell you what right now, I'm still a little skeptical about that. Now, he'd be sticking around. It depends on how bad the loss is. And plus, the way they kind of limped into the playoffs. A team like the Dallas Cowboys right now, who was pretty much recognized as one of the top Super Bowl defenses in the league. I mean, this year. I mean, when you looked at it, it's just this is a team right now who who allowed only 342 points, which was fifth best in the league. But as of late, the game with the Houston Texans, I mean, that's when you start seeing him give up in the high 20s through close to 40 points. I mean, range-wise, and they lost the final game of the regular season to Washington, where they still had a chance for division. They needed an Eagles loss. They gave up 26 points, 626, losing to a third-string quarterback who passed on that day for 158 yards, and they got ran, giving up 151 yards on the ground. And right now, I mean, the team who seems like it's limping in right now, Super Bowl hopes could be in serious jeopardy. I don't know about that, but we'll find out. But I definitely, if he loses this game badly, you expect a change right there anticipated. Then speaking of which, just to close out, Mike Tomlin, who actually, by the way, right now, as we looked at it, like 937 The Fan, Andrew Filipponi was pointing out there, looking at it. And let's see. Who there was a guest on the show that said that feel like Mike Tomlin definitely Mike Lombardi, who's a former analyst on NFL Network, he said he stood by his comment that Tomlin was a coach of the year on 937 The Fan. He called Tomlin a top 5 NFL coach. The Steelers media and fans are spoiled, and average coach will won 5 games with Steelers roster. It's hard to argue that. Love Mike Tomlin as a competitor for this team and as head coach, keeping this team in the position they are in. But at the same time, too, I think the only pushback you got to look at, again, when you're in a city and town like Pittsburgh, especially for the team you represent, I mean, it looks like it could still get 2 first-round picks being ended up with. Now, listen, they didn't get a top 10 pick from losing some games this year, but, I mean, look at it. They're 18th overall right now. Then plus at number 22nd, which is supposed to be the Miami Dolphins pick, they had to forfeit that spot due to the allegations from, of course, Stephen Ross and Brian Flores. So they were supposed to be 22nd in the draft. That pick has been forfeited. And plus the pick they got back in the trade for Chase Claypool that they sent to the Bears. I mean, the Steelers right now, that pick was originally supposed to be the 33rd pick, but that's the case. The Dolphins pick are being skipped over. It looks like that's an extra first round pick. So 18th and 33rd, we'll see. But right now, I tell you what, Mike Tomlin, does he deserve to be coach of the year? I'm gonna have to say no at this time. I don't think so. Love to see him get the award. I think he definitely deserves the recognition. But if you look at it too, I mean, a lot of these coach of the year awards usually run or earned by coaches who had a miserable season the year before, or a new coach that would come onto the scene that would turn around, get into a winning record, into the playoffs, or a guy like John Harbaugh's case, who was the last one to do it, from what I understand, who got coach of the year by getting the Ravens into the playoffs behind an electric Lamar Jackson, who replaced Joe Flacco towards the second half of the 2018 season. They steamrolled, got into the playoffs. Of course, they were run and done, but they got the best record a year later in the AFC, 14-2, only losing the first round. So those would be the circumstances. I'm not sure if Mike Tomlin's going to get that. I'm going to have to say no, but it would be nice to see. And that's going to wrap it up for this edition here of the Men of Steel podcast. Once again, you guys can follow me on your social media outlets. Check me out on Twitter at Men of Steel CGR and on Instagram at Men of Steel Nations. I leave you. They'll be trolling. You're all heroes. Here we go. I gone. Thank you for watching the Men of Steel podcast with your host, Charles Prodigy Richey, here on YouTube. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And for all the latest Men of Steel podcast episodes, feel free to download them on Mixcloud, Anchor.fm, and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, you blink, I'll cut your eyelids off. Don't you blink. I got you. Let's go.